Hey guys, Ron here, and I've been designing Pokemon on this channel for more than 4 years, but never have I made an entire video where I redesigned any of my old Fakemon. It's definitely something I should have done already. I mean, I learned so much about Pokemon design philosophy and drawing in general over the last few years, and there are definitely a group of Fakemon whose designs I've grown to be dissatisfied with. Perhaps I can use these newly refurbished Fakemon in a future region of mine. It won't be developed for another few years, but let's just say the Fakemon I chose to redesign in this video do have something in common and are technically a hint as to what location my intended future region is based on. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy this video, cause I'd love to make a part 2 and have an excuse to redesign some of my terrible old designs. I mean, I don't have that many new ideas, so I kinda need to reuse some old ones, but only after they're re-rendered in my modern style. The first Pokemon I want to redesign is Leaflutter from my second episode of creating new Pokemon, from more than 4 years ago. Back when I went on walks, I saw a leaf and turned it into a Pokemon. The point is that it's a winged branch in the shape of a butterfly that drifts around. It's not an actual bug, just a creature that camouflages into trees and the ground too. But this is probably the most symmetrical Pokemon I've ever designed. I literally copied and pasted one side to the other. It's still cute, but the logic of its body doesn't make sense. The shading is far from the official Pokemon style, and I honestly just gave it these vague wooden segments that I thought looked cool, instead of using any real inspiration. Now, there's nothing objectively wrong about these flaws, I just prefer making Pokemon with more clever inspiration. That's why I'll make the body look like a budding branch and make the leaf wings look less like jagged icicles with veins and more like leaves. Basically, consider original Leaflutter as beta concept art. For a long time, this was one of my favorite Pokemon designs, but I can definitely improve it. I'm going to start with the proportions of the wings and body, a more dynamic pose with its legs and antennas looking like buds on a branch, helping it blend into a tree when it's resting. Its thorax is made of hard bark. The shape is tough to determine at first, but I think once I developed this consistent theme of perpendicular lines that mimic the patterns of the buds, I realized I should implement them in places like the eyes and midsection. The entire theme of its body will be overlapping, folding, perpendicular, or intersecting lines. Instead of 3 spikes for leaves, I'll make it more complicated, but still relatively simple leaf shape for the wings. Finding this balance of shape simplicity is one of the most major things I've learned in the last few years. A diamond as a nod to the diamonds in the original design makes me happy. This is a very comfy color scheme. A perfect autumn Pokemon, which is what the original design was supposed to represent. Here is Leaflutter, the foliage Pokemon, a grass flying type. Leaflutter flies where the wind takes them. They are carefree and conform to their surroundings. Their wings change color depending on the season. Their gentle nature makes them perfect companions for novice trainers. When tired, Leaflutter will rest at the tip of a branch, blending into their environment. They can maneuver around strong gusts of wind as if they are dancing in the sky. Their body is as tough as fresh lumber, and their wings as sharp as knives. They will circle around larger foes in seconds, cutting them in the process. During the winter, Leaflutter migrate in swarms to warmer locations. They have the signature ability, Drift, which makes fire and ice type moves have reduced accuracy against Leaflutter, since the cold and warm temperatures of these moves disrupts the air around Leaflutter, allowing it to inadvertently drift out of the move's way. The shiny is actually just its summer and late spring form. Look at the difference 4 years makes. The colors feel warmer, the design has more personality instead of generic happiness, and the attributes are way more cohesive. I'm not going to pretend like the old one is terrible. I'm sure there will be some that prefer the simplicity of the first take, but I humbly disagree. If this video is popular, I'll make a part 2 where I redesign Leaflutter's pre-evolved form. In the same video that I designed Leaflutter, I also made a goose Pokemon, Brantaero. It's literally just a goose though. I pretended that I also based it on the spruce goose, a wooden plane with a large wingspan, and I even tricked myself into thinking that the final design looked kinda like a plane, but it just looks like a blue angry bird. It's also the Pokemon with the least amount of Pokemon art style implementation. It was literally just my art style at the time, so now my endeavor is to not only give it a more involved origin, but actually make it look like it's somewhat in Pokemon's art style. There are a ton of Gen 9 bird Pokemon that look like literal birds, so it'll still look like a simple goose, but I'll give it some personality. I want to base it on a cranky old veteran pirate. Pilot. Just an old guy who's angry at the world and full of regrets and longs for the old days when it would fly high. I mean, the whole idea is that Canada geese in real life are just very hostile and aggressive. I'll take visual inspiration from old-timey, early 20th century pilot outfits, aviators if you will, with the brown leather jacket and white scarf, and the white spot on a Canada goose's cheek will look like mutton chops. Every design element flows together. We'll begin with a more dynamic pose than the original, which has the flattest pose possible, literally a line, while this one is flying proud. The head will be a mixture of multiple types of geese to make it more aggressive and interesting, more Pokemon-like eyes, and the patterns that look like an old man's mutton chops. The plumage on its neck and chest will look like the collar of a leather jacket and tucked-in scarf. The rest is just the body parts of a goose. Throughout the process, I'll try to find patterns that make its feathers look like a jacket as well. It won't be evident until the final design though. These natural tones really make it look straight out of a previous century. It's literally just a goose Game Freak would design in Generation 9. Behold, Brantaero, the veteran Pokemon, a flying dark type. Brantaero spend most of their youth in the sky, barely even touching the ground. The higher in the sky they are, the more they are happy. Throughout their life, they accumulate the ability to perform countless tricks in the air. At a younger age, when they recklessly perform aerial tricks, they do not watch out for other flying Pokemon and even airplanes in the sky. They have no qualms about harming others while performing their stunts. This nature gets themselves injured. Almost all of Brantaero that can be found closer to the ground are older members of the species who don't have the ability or energy to fly high anymore. They live their life with regret and take their anger out on people and Pokemon. Brantaero are jealous of young souls who live life to the fullest. They're hostile and rude. Only trainers who can provide an exciting life for Brantaero can possibly train one. In battle, they enjoy showing off moves they learned during their younger years. They have the abilities Inner Focus, Intimidate, and Moxie. The shiny looks cool on its own, but it's also a small nod to the original blue colors. I mean, look at this. Brantaero is definitely my least favorite design I've ever made, so I'm glad I can finally redeem it in some way. It's the perfect comparison of how far I've come, and there's still a long way to go. Maybe I'll redesign Brantaero a third time in 4 more years. I know he's still just a boring old goose, but at least now that's kind of the point of the concept. I like how all the nods to old pilots are very subtle. In creating new Pokemon 5 from 3 years ago, I walked around Manhattan and turned what I saw into Pokemon. So I turned a rat into a Pokemon. But honestly, since in the same video I made a legendary Pokemon and an entire other evolutionary line, I dropped the ball on the Hydrat. It doesn't look like a Pokemon, it's just a rat with some jewels on it. It looks flat and the proportions are hideous. Even at the time I definitely could have done better. The whole point of this thing is that it swims in the sewers and collects gems in its fur that it uses to barter. But its shape isn't hydrodynamic at all, and it simply has too many conflicting details. It's incredibly lazy. So I'll make a new version that is more sleek and hydrodynamic, water type looking, and perhaps instead of collecting gems, it collects pearls. I mean, that makes way more sense with the water type anyways. The original wasn't hydrodynamic and its fur was too shaggy. The new design will have a water drop shaped nose and eyes to allude to its typing, a cuter mouth and a body that allows it to swim faster, a way more active pose. It's swimming down instead of jumping in the air like the original. It's able to retract its limbs into its fur, so half of its legs and hands are outstretched while others are within its fur. A more fluid pattern instead of the unnecessary spikes of the original. I gave it fur that looks like the collar of an expensive coat and gave it pearls in the configuration of a necklace, but ended up opting for a mound of sleek hair on its back where it stores its pearls. Originally, I wanted the segments to be colored orange or red like a lifesaver, but after 15 minutes of tinkering, I decided to make it all blue. Here is Hydrat, the pervasive Pokemon, a water type. Hydrat are highly intelligent. They're able to memorize vast networks of pipes. These city-dwelling Pokemon swim at remarkable speeds through sewage pipes. Hydrats spin their tail to propel them in the water. Their hydrophobic fur allows any liquid to glide off their body, keeping them clean and sanitary. They diligently look for valuable pearls and gems that they keep in their mound of back fur. They will barter with each other, other Pokemon, and even humans, exchanging their valuables for delicious food and other items that they truly desire. They are very social and do not fear humans. Hydrat live in entire underground cities. Their nests are more developed, advanced, and furnished than any other Pokemon-built abode. They have the abilities Swift Swim, Pick Up, and Frisk. Their shiny would help camouflage in sewage, and even the wild. Hydrat's original design is probably my second least favorite design of mine. I admit it was lazy. This new design is way more endearing. I'd have him as a pet. I love him and his back mounds. He's just a little swimmy guy. And finally, in creating new Pokemon 9, I went to Disney World literally a month before the pandemic and saw a lionfish, these spiky venomous fish. My idea was to make the name more literal and create a fish that had the attributes of a lion. Since I wasn't able to find a facial design that looked feline, I simply gave it patterns that mimicked a lion and its mane, but then went overboard on the stripes and spots. I personally believe this is too many patterns and details for a Pokemon design. Nothing is uniform, every single spike and fin is a completely different shape, and the face is too small for the body. That's not how fish really work. It looks nothing like a cat and basically feels like a painted human face on a ball of spikes. So my advice for some Fakemon artists is to refine the design so that every detail is intentional. Don't just add stripes and spikes for the sake of it. Let's make a more refined version of Terroison. I'm starting with a pill shape with a giant fin and lower lip. This fish lip is what I think was missing from the original. In the beginning I gave it these spikes that I thought looked like a mane, but decided to give it almost a beard-like array of spikes, and the same spikes on the head like a mohawk. Along with the spikes on the fins, it looks way more uniform and coherent, unlike the original with many spikes in different shapes and sizes. The original's eyes are too intelligent looking, so more vacant fish eyes makes it less uncanny now. Like I've said it in multiple other videos, a bigger forehead makes a Pokemon look cuter, and I think that's what I did to make it look more feline. This tooth felt right for both a cat and fish, along with the lines that segment the face, reminiscent of the facial features of a lion and fish. I gave it 2 additional spikes to look like cat ears, finalized the rest of the design, and gave it this delicate tail for contrast. The original's tail was an afterthought with a random shape. This new one is more glorious. I overdid the patterns of the original, too many different shapes in ill-defined locations and frequencies. In the new design, the patterns are just there to illustrate that this Pokemon has stripes, without making it fully striped. Every Pokemon based on an animal with stripes like Zebstrika and Raikou all have way less stripes than the real zebra or tigers. Same thing here. Same exact colors, but as you can see, no empty, useless space, while also not having too much detail. Beware, Terroison, the dominant Pokemon, a water poison type. Terroison leads a pack of their pre-evolved form. Their highly venomous spikes ward off all predators. Their spines are too much of a hassle to deal with, even for the hungriest of predators. Terroison aren't particularly aggressive when trained, but in the wild, they will instantly attack if they sense their cubs are in trouble. Their tail fins are unexpectedly soft. Terroison allows trainers it adores to pet its tail fin. They have the ability to increase the temperature of their toxins, releasing venom at near boiling temperatures. It has a signature move called Burning Poison, a physical poison type move with 90 damage and a 10% chance of burning. They have the abilities Poison Point, Poison Touch, and Intimidate. Its shiny is simply scary, like that is the last thing I want to see in the water. I was so disappointed with the original Terroison. I spent so much time designing it 3 years ago, only for it to still not look as successful as I wanted it to. I'm so glad that this new version finally looks like both a fish and feline. I think I did a fine job combining both facial features. The amount of detail is also just right. This design was the one I implemented the most of what I learned over the last few years, so I can't wait to see what else I learn in the next few years. I also can't wait for you guys to leave a like and subscribe. Check the description for the music I used, the t-shirts I made for you guys, and my Patreon where you can get cool rewards like seeing my videos days early, which you can also do by clicking the join button and becoming a member. Make sure to also follow me on Twitter where I show sneak peeks of these designs. I'll see you guys very soon.